Hey Lee, how you doing?
Good.
This is John Harwood at 9 Old Chesham Road. You remember me?
Yes.
So, how familiar are you with the setup here, the plumbing setup, as far as the furnace hooked up to the wood-burning stove here? Are you pretty familiar with that? Because Terry Hastings, I believe, had your name on 2 different places over here. So, I'm guessing you might be very familiar with the setup here, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I'd be there. I wouldn't be able to tell you over the phone. Don't remember that well, but
Yeah, how's your schedule look today then?
maybe later this afternoon.
Okay, that sounds good. Just so I can be...
Burn some wood.
Yeah. Why do you ask?
Oh, I was just wondering because he hadn't used it all winter.
Yeah, what do you think might have happened?
Oh, probably nothing happened. I mean, probably gonna be fine. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Just so I can be...
Burn some wood.
Yeah. Why do you ask?
Oh, I was just wondering because he hadn't used it all winter.
Yeah, what do you think might have happened?
Oh, probably nothing happened. I mean, probably gonna be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing is that who installed this or had this whole system installed where the water circulated to the wood-burning stove? Was that, what was her name?
Nina.
Nina. Was she a nut?
Nina.
Nina. Was she a nut?
No.
No.
Why?
No, because it just seems to me like this setup is kind of like set up kind of in a dangerous way.
Oh, what do you mean?
Basically, I did use the wood-burning stove, and I put some logs in there, and we had a fire, and one of the pipes in back of the wood-burning stove that the hot water goes through, that the water goes through to get heated, it blew up, and
Because you didn't have the circulator running.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing about that is that I spoke to about 3 or 4 different people about that, and nobody explained that's what's needed to be done. What they did state though was that if you want, you could turn the circulator on, and you could run the water through the stove and heat your house. If you want, you have that option, they said. So I took that.
No option. Once that thing's got water in it, you have to run the circulator, or the thing's going to do what it did.
Okay, well, I know I did not speak to you directly about that, but I did speak to the house inspector. I spoke to tri-state chimney experts about this. And I spoke to Mr. GC himself, that's Scott Stone. And nobody said, you know, John, you should be careful that the circulator pump is on, otherwise you're going to blow up your thing. You would think if that's just common knowledge that someone would want to say that to me just to avoid issues, because that's what I would say to someone to look out for them so they wouldn't set their house on fire.
Right.
And you know what Scott likes to do also?
What's that?
He likes to cut the wire that's hooked to the circulator pump so there's no way to turn on the circulator pump. That's how much Scott knows about not blowing up your house.
Right.
And you know what Scott likes to do also?
What's that?
He likes to cut the wire that's hooked to the circulator pump so there's no way to turn on the circulator pump. That's how much Scott knows about not blowing up your house.
Well.
So I'm pretty upset. Like, I don't mean to take it out on you, and the reason I call you, Lee, is because out of everybody that I've met since I moved to New Hampshire, I like you the best. You seem to be the most honest guy there. But everybody else over here seems to be pretty inept and goes out of their way to kind of be difficult to deal with. And I really wish that somebody like Stan, the house inspector, or that guy from Tri-State Chimney, or Scott Stone would say that, you know something, you will blow up you will blow up the pipe if you don't have the circulator pump running when you run it. That's some information that I would like when I'm asking them 1,001 questions about this wood-burning stove. You would think they would mention that ahead of time.
Right.
Because I wasn't born into this world with knowledge about this setup here.
Yeah.
So I would.
This afternoon, and we'll go through it, and if we need to fix something, we'll fix it.
All right, that sounds good. So when you say later this afternoon, Lee, just so I'm here, I have to pick up.
It'll be after 2.
It'll be after 2. I have to pick up my daughter at school at 5. So what's that?
It'll be before that.
Okay, I just got to leave here about 4:30.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do though is that if that's the case, you know, I want to remove all the pipes from the wood burning stove. Like honestly, if you have a fire going in your wood burning stove, and the power goes out during the night, you're going to blow up the pipe just the same. So the whole setup is a setup by a nut. Whoever set this whole thing up is an absolute nut. What?
I think it was there when she moved there. I don't think it was something that she did. She used it, but she didn't.
Well, remember how the Japanese bought that faulty nuclear reactor design from the Americans? And they blew up their whole country, almost killed the whole island? I'm feeling a little bit like the Japanese now, but how inept the establishment is over here.
Yeah. Well.
So I have a real big problem with him. A big fucking problem with Scott.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll see you.
We'll get you taken care of.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All right, so before we get to everything, let me first give you a quick overview. So here's a drawing that I did that simplifies everything so it will be easy to understand. So on the left is the furnace with 2 copper pipes leading to the wood-burning stove. So 1 copper pipe takes the water to the wood-burning stove. It goes inside the stove through a coil system and then out the other side. And then the other copper pipe takes the heated water back to the furnace. So it is a circulation system. So by the furnace, you will see a valve on each of the copper pipes. Here and here. The valves had always been shut off or turned down. If you wanted to open these valves, you will turn them so that the valve runs parallel with the pipe. But the valves had always been shut off or turned down. Then there are 2 wires leading from the furnace. The wires are small and they are inside a metal cord for protection. So one of these wires leads from the furnace to a thermostat, and that thermostat hugs the copper pipe. And then the second wire leads from an on and off switch to the circulator pump. And the circulator pump is by the wood-burning stove over here. So this circulator pump helps pump the water through the coil system in and around the wood-burning stove. However, to power the circulator pump, it needs an electrical cord. And that electrical cord goes from the circulator pump to the breaker box, which is the power source. So even though I never touched the setup between the furnace and the wood-burning stove, this is how it was left by everyone who worked on our house. For some reason, the circulator pump's power cord had been cut, so there was no way the pump could work. So you see it's the larger white Romex wire here that powers these things. And also, someone had opened the valves on the furnace, allowing the water to go all through the pipes in and around the wood-burning stove. And then they shut the valves off, trapping the water inside. So there was a red antifreeze water all through the pipes in and around the wood burning stove, kind of shut in there. So this is a completely dangerous situation where there could have been an explosion, especially since the house had propane gas at that time.
It won't take long. Is there an attic?
I didn't even ask. That's a good question to ask. I didn't see anything, so.
Yeah, there's another wall that we can knock down. Yeah.
All right, this was left here when we moved in. And it says water shut off at meter, boiler off at stair switch. Then it says 4/22 of 2015, Leland Patnode. And then this telephone number here. But there was also a piece of cardboard tied to here that said that he serviced this in 2014. I want to say May of 2014. This was serviced by him and he signed it. So after I had an issue of starting the wood burning stove here, and the pipes blowing off the back here because there was actually water with antifreeze inside these pipes, which I was never told about. I contacted Leland Patnode here because he was obviously the person most familiar with this setup and the last person to touch everything here. So he showed up on March the 9th of 2016. And he wrote here that he disconnected wood stove heater zone from boiler. And then he capped wood stove coil pipes. So these were the caps that he gave me here. And they should have gone on here, he said. As you see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fittings here, and he gave me 6 fittings here. So that was the first thing he said when he came over on the 9th to take a look at it. He had to run out and get those fittings. But I was thinking about it before he came back, and when he arrived, I said to him, look, I don't think it would be a good idea to put these caps on in case there is still fluid inside these coils here. And then we'll have the same problem with the pipe blowing on the inside. He goes, yeah. He said, just put 2 on then. Still, he had 6 here for me. And he never said which 2 to put them on. But I wouldn't put them on any because I would like all the fluid inside there to go ahead and evaporate. But as you could see in the previous video, the fluid inside this is actually smoking. It appears to be almost flammable. It isn't a mist coming out of this pipe. It isn't water vapor coming out of this pipe. It's a smoke that has an odor of some sort of chemical burning. So again, I think that's very bad. Very much some bad advice there from Leland Patnode. So I want to document that his name was here, and this sign was left in this exact place, and his name was on a piece of cardboard on the boiler. But when he came over to do the work on the 9th, he took that card away. I didn't see him do that. He ripped it off, and he obviously took it with him. He didn't throw it in the garbage. I checked to see if he threw it in the garbage down here, and he did not. He obviously put it in his pocket and carried it out. But what he did is he disconnected, I disconnected these pipes on the back of the stove here, per his instructions. And he went over here, and so there were 2 of these things here. And so he just took off the bolt and took these off here. And so then we cut this copper pipe that led to the wood burning stove. And also, same thing here. We removed this and we cut it here, which is another pipe leading to the wood burning stove. So these pipes have red water in it, which is water with red antifreeze in it. So I asked Scott, who was the general contractor, a bunch of different questions about this stove. And I asked the house inspector about this stove. And they all said the same thing, is that you have the option of turning on those valves over there, allowing the water to come over here, turning on the circulator pump, and then using this stove to help heat your water, to help heat your house. You have that option. So nobody said that they had put water in the pipes. It was as if, I don't know why somebody wouldn't drain the pipes out. If you're gonna have the old person move out, somebody else move in, the intelligent thing to do would be to remove all the water out of the pipes. But instead they have red antifreeze all throughout this, and nobody wanted to say anything to me about this. So it's irresponsible on behalf of Terry Hastings, who had Lee Patnode do this, I guess, and then Lee Patnode never told anybody about this. So now that you have water inside the pipes here, and it cannot be circulated even if you wanted it to. So it was dangerous for Terry to leave it that way, for Scott, the general contractor, not to mention anything about this, and Lee Patnode with his name right on top of this thing, and his number, about how he's here adjusting everything on April 22nd of 2015, which is a few months. I would say I moved in around July. So this is like 2 or 3 months before I moved in. He's here adjusting everything, and he's not going to tell anybody that there is water inside this these pipes here. And then he wants to come here and seal all the pipes up again as soon as we have this huge meltdown, which is some more bad advice. So everybody here that I've mentioned is pretty inept, and I wanted to document this. This is John. You got a second for a question or two?
Sure.
Basically, I just wanted to know, are you going to be able to service this furnace before I turn it on again? I'm just a little nervous about turning it on without having someone here after we disconnected these wires here.
Should be able to start it right up.
Okay.
If anything's wrong, it's all it's going to do is trip the breaker, or it's not going to start.
All right, and if you can remember, I called you like a couple months ago saying that I would smell like carbon monoxide or something around the house and everything. So I was nervous about that. And so basically, I spoke to my mother-in-law, and she said that probably it has to be serviced or something like that. Is if you could smell the.
You smell fumes there. It needs to be cleaned. Yeah.
Yeah, I smell that kind of fumes. What part of it would need to be cleaned?
The inside, you'd have to vacuum the soot out of it.
Okay. So, do you know when the last?
Do that.
Do you know the last time when this was serviced?
Yeah, right. A little bit before she sold the place.
Okay.
So.
So you did that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And after you serviced it, it hasn't been used much, right? It's just been kept off, right?
I don't know how much you used it. Or they used it after I cleaned it.
Okay.
No.
All right, because there was a little card here that said like that Leland Patnode serviced this in 2014.
Yeah, that's 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And we bought the place in 2015. We moved in July, and we didn't start this up until winter of 2015, 2016. So you don't know if this has been on at all in that period of time between 2014 and when we bought it, right? You have no idea, right?
Yeah, I don't live there, I don't know.
Right, so but you don't think they would fire this up for no reason because nobody's living here. Do you think they would turn it on so the pipes wouldn't freeze, or they would just leave it off? You knowing Terry Hastings. What do you think?
They might have run it.
They might have run it.
Why it needs, maybe that's why it needs to be clean. It's been 2 years, I don't know.
Right. Okay. And when you disconnected the wire that ran from the circulator pump to the furnace, you just disconnected it from the plate, from the, looks like a light switch, and someone wrote it says oil burner emergency switch on or off.
That's obsolete now.
Okay, that's all you did.
That's all I thought.
All right, but that's what you did. You disconnected this, looks like a coil. You disconnected this coil from that light switch. That's the only thing that you did, right? From that emergency switch is on or off.
Yeah, it's not even being used now. Just pretend it's not even there.
Okay. And you know how we cut those 2 copper pipes that led to the wood burning stove? Those still have a little bit of that red water in there. There's no way that's going to heat up around that little pipe there, right?
No.
Okay.
Fine.
All right, we're going to be fine with that. All right. And the last...
So you should be able to turn it on, just use it.
Okay, I should just be able to turn it on and use it. Okay, that sounds good. And my last question is this, Lee. Basically, when I spoke to everybody here, they said that if I wanted to use the wood-burning stove to heat the water, I would just have to turn on these valves to allow the water to go over to the wood-burning stove, and then you turn on that circulator pump. That's what everybody said. So, do you know who...
Wires to the circulator pump, so it wasn't going to work.
Right, but you know how we had to turn off the valves and cut the pipes?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who would open up the valves and let all the water over there and leave it all in there?
No, you had water in there.
Yeah, well, I did not open up the valves to allow the water to go over there. So somebody had water over there. Do you know who that somebody is?
I have no idea. Like I say, I don't live there. I don't know.
Oh, okay, but your name is on 2 different places as the last person to service this, I guess.
I don't service wood stoves.
Okay, but do you know who turned on the valves to allow the water to go over to the wood-burning stove?
No, it wasn't me, so how would I know?
It wasn't you. Okay. So somebody opened up those valves and allowed the water to go over the wood-burning stove. The last time you serviced it, those valves were off, right? Is that what you're telling me? There was no water in the wood-burning stove, right?
No idea. I don't know. All I did is service the burner.
All you did is service the burner.
Yeah. That's all I worked on. So.
All right, because that's why we had an issue, because the valves were turned on and the water was over the wood-burning stove, and no one told me about that. Everyone said to me is you got to turn on the valves. If you want the water to go over there, you can keep it separate. So somebody came and turned on the valves to allow the water to go over there, and then no one told me, so I had that huge problem. So that's why I'm asking you, Lee.
Yeah, well, I don't have any answers for you. All I know is I cleaned the boiler a couple years ago, and that's all I know.
Okay, but what is this, this note on a dry erase board that says that you were here April of 2015 turning the water off at the water meter?
I'll have to look at my records. No idea.
Okay, it's a dry erase board. It was left on the wood-burning stove. And I could read it right now for you. I just want to get this wood-burning stove up to par, Lee. I don't want to freaking pick a fight with you, okay? I don't want to go to fucking court, okay?
What are you going to go to court for?
Why am I going to go to court for? Because when you have 2 little kids here, and after having the inspector come by and spending 6 months straight with plumbers and electricians, and everybody come and looking at everything, and then the first time you start the wood-burning stove, the pipes blow off the back, and the fire department has to show up, I'll consider that a big deal. because I don't know if there could have been a bigger problem with the furnace blowing up. But it sounded like a bomb going off.
Yeah.
And so if my house went up in flames, do you think I would have a lawsuit then, Lee, or no?
Oh, I have no idea.
You have no idea. Well, what would you do if you had a bunch of people working on your situation, and then and then everything blew up? Would you just sit there and take it and not ask any questions, like a good boy?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
But I'll talk to you later.
No, hey, Lee. One more.
I gotta try to make money today.
Okay, I know you do, but you have something here that says water shut off at meter boiler off at stair switch 4/22 of 2015. It says Lee Patnode and has your number. Are you there, Lee?
You have reached Patnode Heating Services in the home of Lee, Jody, and Kevin. We're not available to come to the phone right now, so please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. If you have an emergency and need to reach Lee immediately, please call him on his cell at 603-499-5333. Thank you.
Now, prior to buying the house, I spoke to Stanley Edmonds, who was the house inspector, in great detail about the wood-burning stoves set up with the furnace. And what he said is that you could use the two together, or you could use the wood-burning stove separately. However, if you wanted to circulate the water through the wood-burning stove and allow the stove to help heat the furnace water, you first had to turn on both valves by the furnace and allow the water to come over to the wood-burning stove, and then you had to turn on the circulator pump that would pump the water in and out of the wood-burning stove. I then asked Stanley Edmonds how you turned on the circulator pump, and Stan looked around and then said, "Up here," and pointed to an on and off switch on the power cord up by the ceiling right next to the wood-burning stove. And we looked up there, and I do not remember seeing the power cord cut, obviously. I then told him that I planned on using the wood-burning stove, but I would not use it with the furnace. I would keep them separate. And he said that was fine. And I also spoke to Scott Stone, who was hired as the GC, or the general contractor, in charge of all the other people hired to do work on the electrical, plumbing, and heating systems. So talking to Scott Stone one day, we were looking at the wood-burning stove, and I repeated what Stan Edmonds had told me about the stove. And Scott Stone agreed with Stan Edmonds' explanation on how to use the setup, or how to use them separately. There was a plumber named Leland Patnode, who was recommended by Terry and Brian Hastings from Hastings Real Estate Company, who sold us this house. In fact, Terry Hastings had also recommended Scott Stone and Stanley Edmonds, and of course, she knew both of them personally. Now, Leland Patnode's name was posted all over the house when I moved in. Terry Hastings had Leland's name and phone number posted on the tack board on the kitchen. And then he had his name on a dry erase board that he left on top of the wood-burning stove. And he also had his name on a little cardboard sign that he put on the furnace. And both signs said that he had done work on the house, on the furnace, and on the water system. Now, prior to moving in, I had to go look at the house for the inspection. And as we were waiting outside in the driveway, I believe it was me, the house inspector Stanley Edmonds, and Scott Stone. And Leland Patnode drives up, and he walks up to the front door. And I said, "Yeah, we're all waiting to get in. We're waiting for Terry Hastings." And he then held up the house key and said that he had been given the key by Terry Hastings. So Leland Patnode was very used to working on this house and very used to working with Terry Hastings if she had given him the house key. So Leland Patnode, along with Scott Stone and Stanley Edmonds, had all been recommended by the Hastings of Hastings Real Estate. And Leland would have done the plumbing work. However, at the last moment, Scott Stone informed Linda Teal, my mom, that Scott refused to work with Leland Patnode due to the fact that Leland did not have a license to do plumbing work. So it was strange that he was the person the Hastings chose to work with while they sold us a new house that was left in an extremely dangerous state. Let me read my notes here. On September 15th of 2015 and September 16th of 2015, Scott Stone showed up and he collected a check on each of those days for $1,253. So he was paid in full. And on those days, he said that the electrical inspector would have to inspect the work and that he couldn't finish the meter because it was too close to the propane tank. So either the propane tanks had to be moved or the meter would have to be moved. So it would be up to code. He said though he still had to look into it. So a couple weeks later, I don't have the exact date, a guy named Hamilton, or Ham as he introduced himself, the electrical inspector showed up, and it was getting kind of dark, and it was probably in October, maybe at the beginning of October. So I took a flashlight out with me and we went outside and looked at the meter, and he said that looked all right. And then he wanted to see the breaker box, so I brought him inside and he looked at the new breaker box that was put in. And he stood there staring at that for a while, and he asked me who was doing the electrical work, and I said Scott Stone, and he said he knew Scott Stone personally. And then he mentioned that he got Scott his job working in the area. So I don't know if that was a job he had before he opened up his own Stone electrical contractors business or not, but Ham said that he knew him personally and got him a job. Then after that he left, and in mid-October to early November, my mother, Linda Teal, called and said to me that the electrical service had not yet been upgraded to a 200 amp circuit, and she had paid for that, and she wanted to know if the electrical bill was sometimes high because we had not been upgraded to the 200 amp circuit. So I told her I would call up Eversource and ask them to upgrade us. So I called Eversource around the end of October to the start of November, I'm guessing. And after I got a hold of Eversource, I got transferred around to the different departments a little bit. And then I started speaking to what sounded like some old people. And they had to look into it so they would call me back. So I got a call back from Mr. Chuck Munson. And he said that this house had not been set up for a 200 amp circuit. Yet the circuit that we were on should not affect our bill. So at the end of November 2015, I decided to have the propane tanks removed. So only our stove was hooked up to the propane tanks at that time. So I called them up, and I believe per a invoice I have from them that they eventually removed the propane tanks on December the 4th of 2015. And they gave us a refund of $1,044.45. So also around the end of November, I called up Scott Stone and told him that I needed a outlet for a stove. We were putting an electrical stove, and I needed the higher amp electrical outlet for the new stove. So I'm guessing around the end of November, beginning of December, he showed up and he installed that. And when I went to pay him, he told me the estimate will be about $100 to $150. And when I went to pay him, he said that I didn't need to pay him right then. He didn't have the invoice ready, and that he would bill me later. So I never got that invoice. And that was the end of November, the beginning of December of 2015. So Scott was a little difficult to deal with. So I decided that I want somebody else to come in. I wanted another electrical company to do any other work. So I called Russell Electric so they could come in and I could ask him some questions about the work that he did. So we went and took a look at the meter that Scott Stone put in. This was the meter that he installed very close to the propane tanks that were on the property at that time. So I don't know why he didn't move the meter to the other side of the house so it'd be up to code. So first he installed the new meter right underneath the old one, right next to the propane tanks. And he set it up in a temporary fashion with these two pieces of scrap metal that are stuck in this unit. So the whole thing was kind of dangerous. And Eversource, which I have their quote on video here, When I called up Eversource, said it was usually a temporary setup. So both Scott Stone and Eversource Electric, due to their excuses, due to their negligence, decided to leave that like that for almost a year now. So it is August 9th of 2016. So due to Eversource and then Scott Stone's negligence, they left that like that almost 10 months. About 10 months it was left like that. So when Russell Electric took a look at that, they opened up the box and their reaction was, oh, look at that. That's not good. They were kind of laughing about it, like kind of shaking their head like, oh, that's not good. Their reaction was very negative to that. And then I asked them, well, what's wrong? And they said, you don't want to leave it like that. You need to call up the power company and have them upgrade the meter. They didn't look like it was good. Their reaction was very negative. On August 8th, 2016, I called up Eversource, and they said they'll get back in touch with me, which they called this morning and left a message. And this is that message.
Tuesday, 9:42 a.m.
This is Lon Taylor from Eversource calling for John Harwood. Can you give me a call when you get a chance? My cell phone is 603-533-6956. That's 603-533-6956. Reference to order 49 Old Cheshire Road, Marlborough. I'll be swinging out there to take a look and see what we need to do later today. But give me a call. Thank you.
So I called them back and I explained all this. And when I explained that Russell Electric took a look at the meter and left me with the impression that something was wrong with it, and the guy at Eversource, Ron Taylor, decided to start arguing with me about Russell Electric and if their work was inspected. He wasn't concerned about Scott Stone's work, their future work, and the issue at hand. All of a sudden he started questioning if Russell Electric had their work inspected, and he was kind of deflecting onto that. So I said, well, I don't know if they had their work inspected, but I know Scott Stone had his work inspected by his buddy Hamilton and left it in this state. So what good is this? And he goes, well, it's a law. It's New Hampshire law to have all electrical work inspected. I'm like, well, a lot of good that did this. And I said, what law is it? And then he said, I don't know what the issue is today. And I said, what do you mean? What issue? He goes, you're questioning everything I say. And I said, well, as a customer, I am going to question the service provider so I understand everything that's going on. Because as you could see, things get neglected for 10 months straight if you don't ask enough questions. Then Ron Taylor from Eversource said he didn't know what time he would be there, but he'll be there later that day. So we hung up the phone. Then he called me back a little bit later that day. He called me back an hour later, and he left this voicemail.
Tuesday, 11:08 a.m.
Hi, Lon Taylor from Eversource calling for John again. If you could give me a call back on myself, I probably got hold of the Marlborough Town Inspector as far as the service, and I just needed to verify one thing with you. 533-6956. That's 533-6956. It is Tuesday around 11 o'clock. Thank you.
So I called him back, and we had this conversation. This is John.
Hey, John. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. I got hold of the Marlborough inspector. He said that he had been out and inspected it. However, I guess there's a propane tank right near the meter.
Yeah?
The propane tank is not supposed to be within 10 feet of the meter socket. And evidently that's something that the person that had the original job for your upgrade has been dealing with the electrician on, I imagine. I'm not sure.
You said the original electrician that put in the meter has been dealing with who, sir?
The Chuck Munson was the person from Eversource that was originally doing the original upgrade order that we had from Scott Stone for your location.
Yeah, I remember the name, Munson.
Yeah. So, is the propane tank still right by the meter?
No, sir, I had that removed.
Oh, you did? Okay, good. So, it's inspected. All I've got to do is go out and take some notes so I know what to write up on it, and we'll get it in the schedule, and by the next week we should have it done.
Thank you, sir.
Not a problem. Like I say, I just needed to verify. There wasn't much sense in my going out if the propane tank was, but if you've had it removed, that's fine. So we'll get it taken care of.
All right, I understand. That sounds good. So are you still going to arrive here today sometime?
Yeah, at some point today I'll be out there. I just don't have a clue when.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Bye-bye. So I stayed here all day, and then he showed up in what looked like a little white pickup truck. He didn't knock on the door. He didn't identify himself, and he took off before I had a chance to get out there. So he avoided me meeting with him and asking him any questions. So I called him up on the phone.
Oh, Taylor.
Hey, Ron Taylor, how you doing?
Good.
This is John at Old Chesham Road.
What?
At Old Chesham Road. This is John. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I seen a guy in a pickup truck in the driveway about a half hour, but he didn't stick around to talk to me. That wouldn't have been you, would it?
Yeah, that was me. Everything looks good. I'll put it in on schedule. We should have it done by the middle of next week at the latest.
Everything looks good with that?
Yep, everything looks good. You got a real bad echo. I'm having trouble hearing you. Are you on speaker or something?
No, sir. I gotta get a new phone. This phone isn't that good.
Yeah, the echo's real bad. But yeah, everything looks okay for us to change it over. When they come out, you'll be without power for probably 15, 20 minutes.
So what are those metal pieces that are inside the meter there?
They're like a jumper, basically. He goes in to jump from, jump the meter socket out. A lot of the electricians do that.
And so they just leave it like that for 6-7 months then?
No, he didn't know the service was ready. Had he known the service was ready, we'd have changed it over. The guy that was doing the job, Chuck, retired. So it kind of evidently got left up in the air.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to get it into the schedule and we'll get it taken care of.
All right, that was Chuck Munson?
Yep. Yeah, he retired.
He retired, okay.
Yeah.
And so that's not, according to Eversource, that's not dangerous to leave it like that?
Usually that's a temporary setup when they do it like that. Get the evidently there was an issue. Hello?
Yes, sir. You were breaking up there. You said that usually it's a temporary...
Yeah, usually it's a very temporary thing. Well, once we get the inspection, we schedule it off and it's done. Like I say, evidently there was an issue with a propane tank, and that's why it never got done.
Yeah, I called Chuck Munson, and he got back to me, and he said that my house wasn't set up for a 200 amp circuit. That was what he told me.
No, your house was, everything is set up fine for 200 amp.
All right, so it was just kind of hung up in the air there. Yeah, I don't know much about electrical work. That's why I hire electricians and everything, so...
Yep. Yep, so like I say, everything looks good. We'll get it in the schedule. We'll get it changed over.
All right, so they're going to call me back soon to set up an appointment?
No, they'll just, when they can fit it in the schedule, they go, they knock on the door when they're going to do it.
All right, so I have to go to work and everything. I kind of stayed here today because I thought you needed to see me, but obviously you don't. Am I going to need to be there on a certain date when they change it over to the 200 amp circuit?
No, you won't have to be there. Your clocks will be flashing when they change it out. Like I say, the power will be out for about 10 minutes, and then it'll be back on.
Great, and you will estimate maybe in a week that will happen, or a couple weeks, what?
by the end of next week at the latest, it'll be done.
All right, sir. Well, thank you so much for your help.
Not a problem. You have a good day.
You too.
And enjoy the warm weather.
Yes, you too.
All right. Bye now.
All right, some additional comments on the matter are, on September the 15th, when Scott showed up to collect his paycheck, Scott made it sound as though he wasn't sure, but he believed that our meter may be too close to the propane tanks, and that he was communicating with the power company, and he would let us know. So at first, I find it difficult to believe that Scott Stone, who was an electrical contractor in New Hampshire, would not know about the codes concerning propane tanks, because a great deal of people power their houses with propane gas, especially in the state of New Hampshire. So first he installs the meter in the wrong place, says he's looking into it, and then after he's paid in full on September the 15th and September the 16th of 2015, he then decides to forget the entire job, leaving a dangerous setup behind. After he was paid in full, he didn't even feel obligated to call me back or make any effort to finish this very important and crucial step in installing a new breaker box and the upgrade to a 200 amp circuit. As far as he was concerned, it seemed to me that he considered himself completely finished with the job. So about 2 months go past and Scott doesn't contact me. So I would guess it was around the end of November, when I was in the process of having the propane tanks removed and an electrical stove put in, is when I called him. So he shows up on my request to install a new outlet for an electrical stove. And at that time, he doesn't mention the meter at all. And in fact, he never really explained any of it to me. And from my limited knowledge about electrical systems, I did not really understand what was happening with the meter and the upgrade to a 200 amp circuit. He made it sound like he was finished. So the first time I heard about the upgrade to a 200 amp circuit was when Linda Teal, my mother, calls me up and says that the house has not yet been converted to a 200 amp circuit. Yet she had paid Scott Stone to do all the electrical work necessary for that upgrade to take place. So she wants to know why the house has not been upgraded. She saw it on a bill or some paperwork from Eversource that we had never been upgraded. So she asked me to call up Eversource. So when I call up Eversource to find out why we had not been upgraded to a 200 amp circuit, I thought it had to do with something on their end for that upgrade to take place, like something on the electrical pole. So when I called them up and spoke to a Chuck Munson at Eversource, he tells me that our house is not set up for a 200 amp circuit. And Chuck Munson leads me to believe that it is impossible for us to upgrade to a 200 amp circuit. But he says it should not affect our electrical bill or the quality of service. And I asked him, what's the benefits of being a 200 amp circuit? And he basically gives me a vague answer. Some people are on a 200 amp, some people are on the amp that you're on, and everybody's different. And he leads me to believe that it's impossible for our house to be upgraded to that 200 amp circuit.